Now when you mix the cube a little bit, you get sort of patterns on the cube. You don't really want that to make it really difficult. You mix it even more. Let me show you, this really is mixed. Every single side, I'm not hiding anything. Watch. 83 quintillion combinations and only one looks like that.
Yeah, that is me at age 16, I believe, performing on stage in front of my school for the very first time. And I recently uncovered this footage, and it is safe to say I was not very good. I can tell I was very, very nervous, and I remember stressing for weeks about this performance in the run-up to it, like deciding what tricks I should perform. Because at the time, people at school were only just finding out that I did magic, and so in my head it was like, I have to make a really good first impression. If I mess up, I will forever be known as the kid that messed up a magic trick in front of his school. And so I just spent hours obsessing over what magic I should perform. And I was really surprised to see that I had chosen a Rubik's Cube trick as one of the 3 effects that I performed. The other 2 were basic card tricks, an invisible deck, and finding the 4 aces, so not really too out there, you know, that's stuff that realistically I could still perform. But I have not touched a Rubik's Cube in about 6 years, so it is really interesting to me that a trick I was so confident with and so in love with that I chose to perform at this quite special occasion, I haven't performed or haven't even thought about in years. So why not? Craze of Rubik's Cube magic, I think, can be pretty much dated exactly to when Stephen Brundage appeared on Penn and Teller Fool Us. Now, I'm not saying he was the first magician to ever perform with a Rubik's Cube, but I think his performance definitely had a major impact on the popularity of Rubik's Cube magic. I think if you plotted it on a graph, around the time Stephen Brundage was on Penn and Teller Fool Us is when cube magic just started to skyrocket. I remember every single magic company was releasing their own Rubik's Cube tricks, and every single magician, it seemed, was throwing one of these 1980s toys into their repertoire. Including me at the time. I was fully hooked on Rubik's Cube magic, I loved it, and it quickly became a staple of my repertoire. If you can call what I had at the time a repertoire, it wasn't really that, I was just performing at parties and mainly for friends and family. But at that time, a Rubik's Cube would often be my go-to. I just loved the idea of it. It felt really different to audiences. You show most audiences a Rubik's Cube trick, and the average layperson is going to say, oh, I've never seen a magician use a Rubik's Cube, that's really cool. I know for us magicians now it seems like a common prop, but at the time, and even now, you show one of these to an audience and they're instantly like, okay, this is different. There was kind of a golden age after that Stephen Brundage performance that lasted about a year, 2 years, where Rubik's Cube magic just felt like this different genre that so many people had bought into. Unfortunately for me, the craze only lasted about a year, and then as quickly as Rubik's Cubes had entered my magic repertoire, they swiftly exited, and I found myself bored of the idea of doing the trick. My logic at the time was that the trick was too repetitive. You take a mixed up cube and you solve it in a magical way, and then you do that again, and then you do that again in slightly different ways. I found it to be somewhat like the ambitious card routine, which I also fell out of love with around this time, where it's the same effect on repeat. And for an audience, how entertaining is that really? And so very, very quickly, these old things ended up at the back of my magic drawer, gathering dust. For about 6 years. Honestly, I didn't touch a cube, I didn't learn any cube tricks, I didn't even think about cube magic until a few weeks ago. And I rediscover this old footage of me performing cube magic on stage, and I am struck with the sudden urge to relearn all of this cube magic that I've completely forgotten. When I say completely forgotten, I mean the very essence of cube magic has left my head. I had no idea where to start when it came to doing these tricks. It's like riding a bike. It took like a couple of hours and suddenly I was doing tricks that I hadn't performed in ages. Like all of these scrambles, you know, it took me years to learn them, and then suddenly I was getting back to doing them again. This was a prop I'd completely forgotten about. In fact, it was a whole genre of magic I'd completely forgotten about. It was fresh, it was different, it was interesting, it was all of the reasons that I loved cube magic in the first place. They just came flooding back to me, and suddenly I was questioning why I ever put these down. This is still a really interesting prop to audiences, and the magic is still really, really powerful. Okay, yes, there's a lot of tricks where you mix the cube up and solve it in a magical way. But that's damn entertaining for audiences. That's not a bad trick at all. Even if it is repetitive, it's still really, really cool. But also, it's only repetitive if you do it repetitively. You know, at the time I was 16 years old, I wasn't a great performer. I would happily stand there in front of an audience and do the same trick over and over again. I hadn't learnt properly about routining or being a good performer, and so in my head, Rubik's Cube magic was still attached to how I performed back then. But I'm a different performer now, I'm a different magician, and so the idea of performing Rubik's Cube magic again in a different way, in a better way, was really, really exciting. And it is so important to mention that mixing it up and solving it is not the only trick you can do with it at all. There are so many other tricks that you can do with this. There are matching cubes, vanishing cubes, appearing cubes, cube through head, cube into impossible bottle. I could go on. There are so many things that are possible with this prop. I understand cube magic isn't for everyone, but it does really fit my style as well, which is something that's really important to note, that I'm not crowbarring this back into my repertoire. It feels like it never should have left. The question is, have I actually performed cube magic at a magic gig? And the answer to that is yes. Yes, I have. Now, I wish I had some footage to share with you. Normally in these sort of videos, I do like to bring some footage from a gig. I haven't managed to actually get this filmed yet, but I have performed cube magic at, I think, 3 magic gigs now, and I've got to say, it is going down a storm. It really, really is. Like, people love this. People are fascinated by this. Like I said earlier, it is so different to lay people. Yeah, it's an exciting time for me rediscovering this forgotten genre of magic. So there we go. That is it for this video. I really hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, make sure to hit the thumbs up button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new and you want to see more stuff from me. I do anything and everything to do with magic on this channel, so if that sounds like fun, make sure to subscribe. I've also just bought my tickets for Blackpool Magic Convention. I'll be there on the Saturday and Sunday, so if you see me around, then say hello. I don't bite, I promise. Well, most of the time, anyway. And until then, take care.